and welcome to our first 4W-YALI Circle webinar of summer 2021. My name is Kalki Dalakao, and I'm one of the co-leaders of the 4W-YALI Circle. I'm a medical doctor from Ethiopia, and I attended Mandela Washington Fellowship in 2018. So thank you for being here. Today we will hear from our four speakers about a project called Whose Voice Will We Hear? So we will be recording this webinar and it will be viewed later on the 4W website and YouTube. So we suggest that while you're listening to our speakers, you place your Zoom on the speaker view in the top right corner and mute yourself if you're not talking. As you're listening, please place any question in the chat and we will save a room at the end for a Q&A. Please also feel free to share your name where you're turning on the chat. So before I introduce today's speakers, I want to share a bit about the 4W-YALI Circle. We launched this network in the summer of 2019 when I visited the DW Madison for the second time. Initially, I was part of the 2018 Mandela Washington Fellow from Ethiopia and attended the public management program there. Our circle consists of 40 young scholars from across Africa, many of whom engaged in 4W during the Mandela Washington Fellowship in Madison. So the goal of this group is to foster gender equity and well-being and to provide peer support and leadership development. We engage regularly through webinars and also online discussions via 4W-YALI's Facebook group. We are looking forward to expand this work to create a small grant program and more frequent engagement with the members. To learn more about and also to continue participating in this initiative, you can also please visit our website. I think Olivia will be sharing that link in the chat. You can see it on the chat. Our next, and also make sure to mark your calendar for our next webinar on Friday, July 23rd at 9 a.m. at the same time here, CST. So now I will introduce today's speakers. Mumfo Sipibi and Kati Said Thomas will be telling us about whose stories will be here. It is a project that they co-created to provide a platform for Africans to tell their own stories and be at the forefront how history views Africa and its people. Recognized by the Mail and Guardian as one of the 2020 top 200 young South Africans, Mumpo, like Sidi, has a 7 years experience in the public sector in South Africa and an international experience that includes the YALI regional South African, the United Nations Economic and Social Council, and a project-based work in Lesotho. She currently resides in the Northern Cape region of the South Africa, and she hopes to travel to Kenya later this year to document the series 3 part of the whose stories will we hear, which would focus on that country. Our second speaker is Kathy Seddon-Thomas, is a strategic partnership specialist with over 20 years experience co-creating with multi-sector partners in the areas of health and wellness and racial justice, education, women's rights, community development in US and throughout the world. Kathy started her career in Mali with focus on maternal health and HIV prevention, and she's thrilled to be back in the West Africa this month documenting stories of Series 2 of the same project, which focused on Dakar, Senegal. She currently resides in Madison, Wisconsin with her husband and 12-year-old son. Kathy and Mumfu will be joined by Gail and Lily, two women whose stories are published on the project website. Gail, who is from South Africa, is a founder of Girl with Purpose Foundation, a nonprofit that supports young women by providing skills training and mentorship. Gail also runs a publication and image consulting company. Lily from Kenya is a homeschooling mother of 3, engineer for
Recording in progress. Who you on Zoom with? I'm watching.
I think we may have lost Kalkidan, so I'm just going to finish reading these bios. We heard about Gail Malunga from South Africa, who is the founder of Girl with a Purpose Foundation, a nonprofit that supports young women by providing skills, training, and mentorship. Gail also runs a publication and image consultation company. We'll also be hearing today from Lily Mugain from Kenya, who is a homeschooling mother of 3, an engineer, and a volunteer leader of T21 Family Support Organization, which empowers people living with Down syndrome and their families. So I apologize for the brief pause there, but I think now we will turn it over to Kathy and Mpo.
So our plan was for Mpo to lead off. Hello, everyone. I am not sure if her connection is solid. Mpo, if you can hear me and if you're able to begin and join us, please go ahead and do so. Okay, perhaps not. So we'll just we'll go with it. So good afternoon, bonjour, nangadaf, and salam alaikum from my temporary home of Dakar, Senegal. As I was introduced, my name is Kathy Seiden Thomas. I'm honored and delighted to be in community with all of you today. This format, of course, does not take the place of what I think would be a beautiful large table of people in a room, but it's still nice to be in community with you this way. I had the fortune to meet Mpo in 2019 when I was a UW-Madison staff member. Also, you know, wearing my hat as a community member. And that is where our friendship began, as well as the seeds for our collaborative project that we're sharing with you today. Whose stories will we hear? I do see Mpo's face, so Mpo, I will turn it back to you if you're ready, and then you can bounce it back to me, because I'd really love Mpo to lead us today.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having us. I think as introduced, my name is Mposi Bubi. I am from South Africa, Mandela Washington Fellow Alumni 2019. I got the privilege to be part of the University of Wisconsin community then, and that's when, like Katie has said, I met Katie then. Whose stories will we hear is basically a project which Katie and I initiated when Katie came to the continent and was traveling the continent. The project itself just centers around amplifying the voices of Black Africans in the continent. I remember during Katie's stay, especially it was the initial part of COVID, especially when she was about to leave the continent, and she was like, with so much happening around COVID in the continent, we did not hear everyday stories of everyday people. And we are scared, like, I think one of the main concerns was that history believes stories that are being told. And I think as an African, as a young ghost as a young woman who's an African, I wanted, we as a collaborative, we thought it would be great for other Africans like me to have the opportunity to tell their stories and control their stories from their own narrative. Because at the end of the day, stories will be told about COVID and during this time. And for us, it was very important that other people who normally is not in the spotlight of getting the stories being told are told. Although Whose Stories Will We Hear started as a project that was just focused on telling stories around COVID, it has gone and has grown to just being a project that amplifies stories of Africans in the continent beyond COVID. Just telling everyday stories of African people in the continent and just changing the narratives of what people think of the continent, but also tackling the myths around what the African continent is. I mean, there's so many stories of innovation and change that don't get to be told. And we think this is a great platform for the stories to be told. Currently, the project runs in over 15 African countries, 16 to be specific. And we have collected over 28 stories. The stories that are in the blog are over 28. The stories just are diverse in their ways and forms because we wanted to show the range and the of how COVID has affected everyday African people and how it continues to affect people. The project is currently in Dakar, where Katie is currently, and we're collecting stories of people who did not necessarily have the platforms to go out and log in and send an email or submit a story. So these are people who gone to the streets. These are women in the markets. These are fishermen. These are everyday communities who are able to tell their stories, through whose stories will we hear, and how COVID has affected them during this time. So Katie, I'll hand it over to you right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mpo. In addition to what she shared about our inspiration and vision for the project, I have a slightly different or additional lens as someone who lives in the United States. I see the opportunity to share these first-person stories as a vehicle to shift the narrative or disrupt stereotypes that many in the US have of Africa and Africans. I frequently think of the words of one of the founders of a really cool organization called Afro Bubblegum, which is actually in Kenya. And the woman says, you know, most of the people most people outside of the continent, when they think of Africa, they think of three things. They think of war or conflict, they think of poverty, and maybe they think of safari. But we are so much more than that. And if the rest of the world knew our stories and knew you know, who we were as people, then maybe these stereotypes and perceptions would not exist. And so our hope is that by sharing these stories, by creating a platform that perhaps people will read them on our website, they will hear the stories through engagements like this one, or through others, for example, like a presentation that we did a few months ago to high school students in a Wisconsin classroom. And a moment on those partnerships, we're so grateful for partnerships that have made our vision a reality, you know, from the Mandela Washington Fellowship that brought us together, to collaborations like this one today, to you know, recent promotion that we received on social media by several teams at the US Department of State that focus on international exchange. We continue to explore new partnerships to share the stories of our contributors. And as Mpo mentioned, I'm here in Dakar this month. I'm actually only here for a few more days. I've been working with another Mandela Washington Fellow or alumni from 2019, Azil Momarlo. We've been documenting video stories, collecting raw footage of, as Mpo said, people who might otherwise not have the opportunity to share their story. And so we've talked to university students, the owner of a surf school, a woman who has created fitness classes for mothers who don't feel comfortable exercising in public, urban farmers. There's an association of Senegalese who are trying to promote a zero waste Dakar to protect the land and the water for future generations. We're in the process of seeking resources to support the editing of the video, also to support future series like series 3 that we talked about, that Mpo is interested in doing in Kenya. And then the last thing that I'll mention before we turn it over to what we're most excited about, our contributors today, is that part of what we're interested in doing, and the restrictions because of the pandemic, because of the COVID-19 virus has made it more difficult, but we're interested and we're piloting in Senegal a model of co-hosting local events in African countries with our contributors. So tomorrow, Azil and I are hosting an event at a cafe to share the project with young people and participants in Senegal, to share, to learn about the project, to share their story with each other, to discuss the idea and the power of first-person storytelling. And then, if interested, to share their story with us to be part of our documentation. So that is all I have. Mpo, I will turn it back to you. If there's anything more you'd like to share about the project, or if not, to turn it over to Gail.
I think we should just turn it over to Gail, and then if there's anything else after Gail and Lily share their stories, I'll just hand it back here and just like put my 2 cents. Gail, can you please just share your story? So Gail is one of the contributors to our stories. I think she was already introduced, but as I know Gail personally and I know her work, she's quite exceptional, and the work she's done with young girls, especially in her community, has led to so many generational changes in terms of the work that she has primarily. Gail has taken kids from primary school and had put them through a journey of where kids go to varsity and come back to work, and there's actually changes in the community in terms of financial changes in the families, economic, social, and. So yeah, thank you so much, Gail, for joining us. So Gail, please share your story.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, Mpo, for believing in me to can be part of such a beautiful project. And before I can even start to share my story, I would like to just say congratulations on the exceptional jobs. I'm sitting here listening on about how this came about and how it's going and what is the vision, and I'm really, really inspired because I truly believe that everybody has a story to tell, and that story on its own can bring so much change, so much impact in many people's lives, and it also can be a solution to a community, a nation, or even an individual itself. So I do not take it light to actually be part of this platform, because I get to share my story. I get to share and have a voice, because you have truly gave us the opportunity to have a voice. So thank you so much. You are doing a great job, and I'm so inspired. Without any waste of time, so I'll get to it. I'm just gonna refer a little bit to what I thought actually it was gonna be an interview type of thing, but I guess I'll just share whichever way. As I said that every person's story brings upliftment or even a solution, and no one can tell your story better than you can. So as I was introduced, my name is Gail. So my name is Gail Mutoung. Now I'm back to my name. So the first name is, as you mentioned, and as you know, it's Gail Maluga. So I went through a divorce, if I may put it that way. I got married at the age of 22, and at the age of 28, I was divorced. And this is also part of my story, and I am not ashamed to share my story, because I believe my story can also uplift someone. As I am speaking today, for me, I believe it's a miracle, because I've always aspired to be a speaker, and I went through a season that I never thought in my life I'll ever go through. During the time when we were going through that divorce, I went through a season of depression, and that affected my eyesight, and it also affected my speech. And I would, in a way, stutter. I'm not a stuttering person, but I would start to stutter. And in a way, it was eating up my confidence. And I remember I rejected so many invitations to speak, because I felt like, okay, this is not me. This is, I won't be able to do this anymore and all that. But I learned as I went that, sometimes we go through certain things so that we can be bold enough and brave enough to can come out of a dark place and rise up again. But this time you rise up as a better person than you were before. So I am really honored that I'm here, because there is so much that I have learned. And during the time when Mpo asked me to share my story, um, I was actually in going through so much. A lot was happening during that time. And also we have a pandemic happening. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So here we are, we're going through a pandemic that has affected the whole world. And also we had our own individual pandemics that were happening. Nobody knew about them. We had battles that we were fighting, but we chose to fight back and still stand. And that on its own is a story. And that on its own, for me, I'm inspired by so many stories that I hear from people who shares what they've been through and where they are, or what they have overcome. So I started, after the divorce, I had to start from scratch. I lost everything, literally everything. So I registered my own company. It's called House of Yada Publications. And when I registered my own company at that time, I didn't even know how I'm gonna start. All I knew is that I was publishing book. I'm an author also and a publisher. So all I knew is that I was publishing books. A few months ago, the next thing I'm in a space whereby I don't have any of that. So I decided I'm going to register my business again. How I'm going to start, I will see. Then later on, I received a call. I think it was 2 weeks after registering my company. I received a call from someone and said, Gail, there is someone who would love to publish a book and I recommended you. And I said, okay. That person is from the UK. I'm like, okay, UK, okay. Okay. And for me, when that happened, it was a validation. The universe was responding to say, you must not give up. Yes, you have to start all over again, but you are starting now from experience. You have gained so much knowledge and you learned so much. You also learned some mistakes that never worked then, and now you need to now learn to put right systems into place. And that is what I did. And I started my company from scratch, and I chose a different approach from how we used to do business then. And today, I can confidently and excitingly say that the company is doing so well, and I'm learning a lot. And I'm so honored again to actually be, I would say I'm a mentee to Mpo, because I'm so excited. I'm part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship 2021. Even though we are not traveling, but what's exciting for me, it's the knowledge I'm gaining from what I'm learning every day. And for me, that has been such an amazing experience. So the company itself has taught me so much. The experience itself is teaching me so much. And that I'm passing the knowledge to others to say, hey, if you hit rock bottom, like they always say, the only way it's up. So the pandemic has affected us in so many ways. But one of the things I can say, I don't want to say I love, but is that when you find yourself in a storm, one of the things we know is that after every storm there is a rainbow. So many times we stuck in the storm and we give up in the storm, forgetting that after every storm there is a rainbow, and that rainbow brings so much beauty. We might not know what's gonna come out next after this pandemic, but what I know is that I have hope that it will be better. We'll come out of it better. Yes, sadly, we have lost family members. We have lost so much. Businesses have been affected. Companies have closed down. People lost jobs. A lot has happened. However, I believe that we can use this time also to discover what are the strengths that we have inside of us. What are the things that we can unleash? Because here I am, I've lost everything. What now? what are your talents? What are your gifts? What is it that you can use, that your God-given talents and gifts, that you can contribute to the world, that even when you are no longer here, you will still be remembered of the legacy you left behind. So some of the things, they happen for a reason. We might question them because there won't be answers at that time, but I believe that it's time also to introspect ourselves, even in terms of our leaders around the world. We need to now, leaders should now reposition themselves to say, is my position about being in a position as Mandela has stated, or is it about my behavior and my conduct as a leader? And what example am I setting? What are the things that I am doing so that I can lead this nation, and I can lead people in my organization or in my company, or make a difference even in my community. So it has been truly an amazing journey. At the same time, people still wonder, how are other people still achieving during this time? I think also it has to do with your mindset. You need to have a positive mindset. It's not easy to have a positive mindset when you're going through so much, and still there is another pandemic that is just overshadowing us. But I think when you draw strength from people who are doing well, and you draw inspiration from that, it will also inspire you to say, I've always aspired to do this, and this is what I'm going to do. I might not have resources, but let me start first by registering my company. If it's a business, I'm going to register. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't have much, but let me just position myself, because I think the thing that makes a lot of us to fail at some point or give up on our dreams is that we want everything to be in place before we can start. But I have learned that take the step, and when you take the first step, the other step will build you up to the next one. So you just need to take that step of faith and keep going. Take the first step, register your company. After that, find ways, and even Google, I mean, research how to about the business that you are doing, the industry and all that. Start doing that, and just start improving yourself and learn to be unique in the process. So for me, a platform like this inspires me so much, because I get to hear some other people's stories. I read about them. I'm like, oh, okay, I never thought of it this way. So you know what? From today, I'm going to approach it in this way and see the results that it will give to me. So yeah. And the experience during this COVID for me has been bittersweet in such a way. There have been challenges, and also there have been times where I got to grow. You see, when you are in a dark space, you get to grow. Dark space is not only about the bad, but it's also about finding strength and healing also at the same time. So I got to experience that also on its. Oh, I think you're going to lose me. I'm sorry about this. I didn't see my screen.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear
Hello.
you.
Oh, I was wondering if Gail can hear us. I think we lost Gail.
Yeah, maybe if Lily could just take over, or
Yeah, maybe I think so too. Maybe if Lily could take over. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Lily was introduced in the introduction, but I just want to give a personal introduction because this is all feeling very personal. I'm feeling a sense of connection, like a heart connection today, more than a head connection. In advance of a visit to Kenya in, I guess it was the beginning of 2020, I met Lily in a Facebook group, and it was a Facebook group of mothers from around the world who were interested in giving their children opportunities to see the world, but not as tourists, and really to see the world and learn about the world from the people who live in the places that they visit. And I had posted a message that we were interested in visiting Kenya, including Nairobi. And without hesitation, without knowing me or my son, Lily responded and said, please come visit our family. Please come eat with us, come stay with us, spend time with us. We would love to have you. And so we did visit them when we were there. And my son had a wonderful time with her 3 children. And we, since then, have had this connection and this friendship. So I just want to thank Lily for her hospitality and her warmth. And I will turn it over to you, Lily, for your story.
Wow, Kathy, you're making me melt, you know. As you say, this is more than a heart connection. For me, it's more than a head connection. So this is a heart connection. And yeah, as you've put it very well, it was a pleasure meeting you in person and your son, Jackson. I would say I'm this type of person. Sometimes many wonder, why would I do such a thing? Why would I want to just host a stranger, someone who has posted on Facebook? But I say I was actually flowing with Gail, you know, when she was talking. So I'm really disappointed that she dropped. She was saying everything happens for a reason. And that is one of the things. When I get an opportunity to host someone or to just uplift someone, I always ask, why me? Why has it come to me? So why did I feel like I need to host Kathy when she was here? I will put up my hand and just say, yeah, I'll do it. And then learn from that. What I've seen from my experience, okay, growing up, you learn so much by connecting with people. Sometimes we think, we have this saying in our tribe that those people who don't travel think their moms are the best chefs. So I also say those people who don't connect with others think that they are the best, you know, until you meet people from different places, learn from all over, economic classes, religion, everywhere, you will never really live a fulfilled life. You'll always be thinking maybe you're at your best or you're at your worst. You could meet someone and you're like, what? I thought I was doing badly. Now I am doing so well, and you want to lift them up. So I love interacting with people. So thank you, Kathy, for introducing me even to this forum. I invited a number of my friends also, and I think they are here, some of them. It's good to have such an international platform where we can speak, where we can share our stories. And as Gail was saying, you never know whose life you will change. This became a reality to me. I never thought I would be speaking in front of people. Now that it's virtual, even physically, I never thought, at least Gail wanted to be a speaker, was aspiring to be a speaker. I have always wanted to be at the background. You know, I can push someone. I can push my children, be the best public speakers. I want to be like the shepherd. And I have been challenged over and over again. Can you just be at the leadership position where now you're the one shining? When I go for interviews, I'm asked, so Lily, tell us about yourself. I keep saying, we have done as a team, and I keep being reminded, tell me about Lily, you. So now here I am again talking about the many people. So let me try and narrow down to who is Lily. So Lily is this young girl, not really young. I'm 41 years old, and I have been brought up from a small village in Kenya called Karatina. It's in Nyeri. Many of people who know about Kenya know Nairobi maybe and Mombasa because of the beaches. But Kenya, yeah, there are many other different villages and continents. And so Lily was brought up in a family of 5 girls. My mom and my dad have been so good to us. We don't have a brother, and that also has fed onto our ideas of life. So I also do want to get a boy because I don't know how to bring up a boy. I don't know how to live with a boy. I only know my dad. But I was blessed with a boy who is Monene and who has pushed me to this level. Because of Monene, I speak so much more. So little did I know that this boy, every time when I was pregnant, I'm a mother of 3, and Monene is the 3rd born. Every time when I was pregnant, we would go for the scan and we are told, it's a girl, I'm here. Yay! The 2nd born, it's a girl. Yay! And my husband now told me the 3rd time, please don't pray. Let God do his will. You're the one who's been praying for girls. If he wants to give us a boy, let him give us. So he wanted a boy, back of his mind. But I just wanted girls. I just wanted 5 girls, actually. Can I just have like my mom did? So anyway, so this time I didn't pray. I said, may your will be done. And we got a boy. So we got a boy and I was like, okay, so how do you live with a boy? And this boy called Monene was, at 3 months, we were told he has Down syndrome. And you're like, okay, so what is Down syndrome? That's one thing I have never heard of. Right now I hear people saying, how didn't you didn't grow up with people with Down syndrome? And somehow it was beyond, I didn't see it, I didn't know what it was. So we read and we're like, okay, first we didn't see anything big. We're like, okay, delay in milestones then. You will get there eventually. But now there's Mr. Google. We Googled and we saw bad pictures, funny stories. Now that is now what we are reading in Google, and we have, what's all this? So Down syndrome is bad. So now we are in mourning. We are thinking, what's all this? What have we gotten ourselves into? Yeah, and here am I now talking more because of this boy that I got, that I had always prayed for a girl. So yeah, Down syndrome now became part of our family. Besides the mourning, and why did we even mourn? We didn't know much, but the stories that we are seeing in the internet, we didn't have stories, African stories, Kenyan stories, and the stories that are there in the net are mostly the negative. How about we share some positive stories? So this platform has even shown me how we can change the stories, not just of women or just Africa, but also many things. There, you might be living with a condition that people think so badly of, and the stories out there are so negative. But you can come out and share your story, and it becomes something empowering and motivating to the people. So I kept asking myself, so why did we get ourselves here? How is it? Because why did we get a boy with Down syndrome? But with interacting now with people, because we started a group of ladies. Actually, my son is here and he's trying to talk to me, but I will move on. A minute, go tell Wangari. Go tell Wangari, yeah? Okay. Good. Good. Go tell her thank you. Okay. So, sorry. Go draw for me the sausage, then I'll come. Okay. Okay, so I'll just continue. He might be here to stay for some time. So yeah, oh, he's welcome. Don't dare him. Don't dare him on the screen. He knows. But anyway, so we started a group. My sister, who is actually on this call, Lizzie, told me I have a friend who has a child with Down syndrome. So that was the first person I was hearing in Kenya. I thought we were the only one. And I was like, okay, can we meet them? So I called her, thanks to my sis, I called her and I told her, I think we need to meet. her daughter is 2 years older than my son. So I was like, how have you been doing some of life? How are you? How is your child? I'm just seeing stories of doom. So anyway, we connected with her and we ended up now meeting. And she said, I have another friend who has a friend. And I'm like, okay. And then another friend who also told me a neighbor. So we ended up being 5 moms. We met for coffee and we were all, first we cried, are we the only ones in Kenya? Are we the only ones in Africa? Are we the only, So then we started sharing stories of hope. And we're like, why don't we start a group of women to encourage the mothers to grow, to help their babies thrive? Because this journey, if you're alone, you might think it's all doom until you realize others are facing even greater challenges than you were. So we started as a mama group of 5. Right now, we have a registered organization. It's called T21, Family Support Organization. And we are over 200 moms in the forum. In this group, when we started, it was just encouraging each other. You'll be well, and then celebrating milestones. So a typical child might get their tooth or might crawl, say, at 6 months. And then the child with Down syndrome might crawl at 1 month, at 1 year. And here I am celebrating at 1 year. Yeah, my child has crawled. And the typical parents might be thinking, okay, don't you think you're a bit late for this celebration? But the moms now, when we in this group and we say, he has crawled. So we are all celebrating and said, whoa, mine is 1.5 years and he's never crawled, will he ever? And someone else will say, try therapy, do this, do the other. So we were out to just encourage each other. Then we realized, besides encouraging, there are policies that need to be changed. If we don't speak our stories, our struggles, and give hope to even other parents, someone out there who is meant to change policy or help the families thrive will never do what they are meant to thrive. Will never do what they are meant to do for this to happen. So we said, as an organization, what else do we need to do? So as an organization, I was voted for as a secretary. They thought I could talk, but at some point I was like, I was telling them, I don't really talk as much, but because of now seeing the issues, the troubles that the moms are going through, and Munene has not gone through a quarter of those issues, I was like, no wonder I am then the vessel. So I am here to be a vessel of the moms, the families of people living with Down syndrome. I have seen, if I would, that's why I would say, if I'm asked, so why did I share my story? Let me just say, I'm the vessel. Sometimes we ask for stories from the moms, even the families. Some people are not courageous enough to speak. But if we don't speak, nothing will change. And someone will keep going to Google and seeing negative stories and thinking their life is doomed, or I'm the only one in Kenya, I'm the only one in Africa. If we don't speak, nothing will change. So that's why I said, when Kathy approached me and asked me, so Lily, will you? I said, oh yes, I will. I'll do the best I can. I'll just try not to speak too much. Now I speak a lot. So I will try not to speak too much, but I will do the best I can. What's been my experience with COVID, if I would go straight to that, because I'm seeing time is going. My experience with COVID, I am a full-time employee, I would say. I work for a telecom. I'm an engineer, but I work in finance in a telecoms, in the telecoms industry. Our offices since COVID were locked and we are working from home. So we permanently got our offices in the home, and we are not seeing like we are going back. People have said going back to the office hours. We don't think we'll go back. I think people have realized, we are delivering, so why go back? we can have some savings. So that's a plus for me, because I'm very family focused. I was always struggling between, you know, the way we say life work balance. I want, yes, the bread and my bread buttered, but at the same time, I want to be with my children. So for me, this is a plus. It's quite tiring because I could be in meetings, and as you've heard, Munene, luckily he's gone, or unluckily. So he keeps coming. I'm used to that, and my colleagues are used to having him on the call. So those interruptions are there, but it has also taught them the value of work, the value of, they know what mom does. Munene says she works on a laptop. So they only know seeing her on the laptop, what else, and that's besides it. And more to that, I have managed to start homeschooling my children. I had always wanted to homeschool, and that's why I'm in the group of world schoolers, and that's how I met Kathy. I always thought at one point, maybe I will resign and just homeschool them. But that was not God's plan. The plan was, yes, you will homeschool them, but you'll still be working. So maybe, because the dream to homeschool is like 4 years old, and it's until COVID that we started homeschooling. We realized we can do this. So they are fully homeschooled, and they are loving it. The contributions, the bonding that we've been having have been awesome. So I am glad that we made the decision. Thanks to COVID, it forced us, because they started online schooling, and I am not pro online much. They were getting tired. So we said, why not just homeschool? And anyway, I'm here. So yeah, that was the plus for COVID for me. But then for the Down syndrome community, we have seen many issues. We have seen children missing therapies. Luckily, I have not had to miss therapy, but because of traveling, because of exposure, and the issue that the children might get exposed to the virus, and then, we don't want fatalities. Many have missed the therapies. And for us, we say therapy is the lifeline for our children. We've seen the travel restrictions come up, and children that are supposed to have traveled, say, to India for heart rectifications, it's been bad, so they can't travel. We've had 2 children actually pass, 3 up to now, because they couldn't travel. They couldn't go to have their heart rectified in India. It can't be done in Kenya. It's too complex for us right now. So having such things happening in the community, then you're like, so what should be done? Healthcare should be beefed up, because you shouldn't be having life lost because of this. So besides suffering the usual, what everyone else is suffering from due to the pandemic, there are much more issues that the Down syndrome community is feeling. In general, for women in Kenya, I would say women are the primary caregivers. You might have a help. You are lucky, at least in Kenya, we can get help much easily than many other countries internationally. But Kenyan women, okay, we are basically the primary caregivers of our families. During this COVID season, we've seen many businesses going down, spouses losing their job, and a mother will always be a mother. You end up being converted to mother, even your husband, when the business is doing poorly. So what happens to the mental health of these women? They don't have forums to speak, and air their grievances, or at least just even share, so that you're not alone. So I would say women have seen the brunt of this pandemic, whether it's Down syndrome community or just the general Kenyan woman has suffered in this season. And I hope that many more forums come up so that many more can talk and feel how their issues are are listened to, because sometimes an issue shared is an issue solved. So maybe even, or just opening up forums for people to talk so that they know they are not suffering alone and someone cares. It's a really big thing. So big up to this forum. Keep doing this, keep inviting African women, Kenyan women. And if I might say right now, we are having a big event. It's called the Safari Rally. Kathy, you mentioned when people hear of Africa, it might be just Safari or the world. Now we have the Safari Rally that is happening. And this is the world, it's actually the 6th round of the World Rally Championships. It is actually, what do you call them? Cars racing. And we have international drivers here. So one of our towns called Naivasha, if you're on Twitter, you can check. Naivasha is trending because of this that's going down. So we have many things happening. You're welcome, visitors, and feel free to link up with Lily so that I can learn from you out of selfishness. But at the same time, I will be happy to host you and hopefully help you save or also learn something from us, the Kenyan community. Thank you all for having me. Thank you, Kathy, and everyone.
Thank you so much, Lily and Gail, for sharing your story. I think the emphasis of women empowerment has been at the core of the project, at the core of Whose Stories Will We Hear. I think it's truly been an honor to hear these two stories. They truly inspired. I think the emphasis also of mental health is something that we need to recognize, especially during this time. COVID-19 came in and our lives were changed, and there's mental shift in people's life. And I like the fact that you, Lily, and Gail shared that aspect of it, that mentally it just takes a toll on you. And to know that you're not alone sometimes in this space or in this in how you feel as a person, because there's a time where, especially in terms of social media, everybody's having a good time. They're doing COVID challenges, and you're home and you're wondering, why am I not feeling good to participate in these challenges? And I think the more people talk about realistically about these challenges, it's truly amazing and great, because it just shows you and shows everyone else that there are truly everyday stories of everyday people. You also acknowledge, just speaking on the social and economic side of what COVID did to families, is truly, I personally learned a lot, and I think everyone else was appreciative of what we learned from you and Gail by sharing your stories. With that said, I'm going to hand it to Kathy to expand more about the plans of the project, and not just the plans of our future plans of the project. I saw a question, and I don't know if this is the time for questions, but I saw a question, and then Kathy will just address to that, and I'll just expand more on the project and what, besides what we are doing now, what we intend to do and what we want to do, and how women empowerment has been a very inspirational, also a very intricate part of what we're doing as Whose Stories Will We Hear.
Sure, thank you, Mpo. I'm so moved by the stories. To shift to specific questions is a little bit tough, but I do see one question in the comments. And then I also, Gail, if you have a solid connection after I respond quickly to this question, if you would like to finish your story, you were, caught coupe in the middle of it, we could pass it back to you. We do have time. So the question I see was, how do you fund the project, be able to travel and all? So for the past year plus, almost a year and a half, Mpo and we've donated our time. We've been, funding the project on our own. So the way that I've been thinking about it is I do independent consulting for other projects that maybe I'm not so passionate about, but I try to find the personal funds there to be able to fund this project. And so, for example, my time, here in Dakar, but it's been self-funded to date. So we're seeking resources and partnerships, be it private funding or grants, to try to support the next phases of this project, because we feel a bit that we've taken it as far as we can on our own, and that's kind of where we're at this point. Gail, can I turn it back to you to finish?
Yes. All right. I'm so sorry about that. I'm sorry that it cut me while I was sorry. Yes. I'm so sorry about that, that it cut me while I was busy talking. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Also, I was so inspired by Lily's story. You're such a beautiful storyteller. And I'm also inspired by the work that you are doing. So I can't even remember where I got cut off, and it just distracted me. But one of the things I wanted to emphasize is having to grow from a very not so much of a disadvantaged, but I grew up in I always call it the dusty streets of Val Triangle, and the environment I grew up in, the mentality they have is when you finish school, it's either you go to university or you go to a college or you find a job or you just stay at home. There's nothing spectacular that comes out of a place like that. And that was the mentality. So my mentality was challenged to say, if this is how the people in Val believe things to be, then I'm going to change the narrative. And I believe that there is so much gold that can come out of this place, and that is what inspired me to start Girl with a Purpose Foundation, which is a non-profit organization aimed to empower, train, and equip young girls so that they can be the best, or rather the highest versions of themselves. So we teach them. I am so very passionate about entrepreneurship because I believe that it is the heart of how many countries will survive through. Or we teach them entrepreneurship. We are very big on education. We always make sure that we check the academic records. I teach them about business. Right now we have 4 girls who have started their own businesses. They sell sweets. The other one, what she does, and this is something I said to them, we think that business is all about doing things that other people know, but you can actually start very small. You can start your own unique things. That's why I believe in so much in uniqueness so much. We spoke about it, and I said, what do you love doing? And she was still struggling to think. And I said, okay, if I was to give you a chore in a house, what do you enjoy? Do you enjoy cleaning? Do you enjoy washing the dishes? Do you enjoy washing the windows? And she said, I actually enjoy washing the dishes because I get time to think. And for me, I really enjoy. I hate dishes. And I said, girl, actually you're gonna start from my kitchen, because I hate washing dishes, and I'll literally pay you to wash my dishes. Today she started a business whereby she gets booked to go wash dishes. Of course, I monitor that. I go with them. I get to see where she's going. I drop them there when I can, and they have to book, and most of the time they book through me because they're still young, and I want to make sure that also their safety is also important. So those are the things that I am passionate about, and I believe that there is hope. I'm passionate about young girls, and I want them to be better women in the future. And for me, my message, just to close off so that don't take the whole time, my message to all the women is that you are so much more than the bad things that has happened to you. So whatever it is that you have probably gone through, that some of you are probably currently going through some challenge, and sometimes that challenge would actually be a gain for someone, and it will be a gain even for you. You might not understand it now, but it will be a gain at some point. Because, and one of the things the I always tell my clients when they come to publish their books, I said our slogan is ink your dream. So ours is to help you ink your dream. But I always tell them that, you know what, your story, whether it's painful, even if, because people think it's all about writing, it's all about writing the nice things. No, even your pain. So that pain that you think it's just pain, that pain you can turn it into gain, and you gain from it. So when you write your story, you are gaining from that. So with that being said, thank you so much. I really appreciate this platform, and I am so inspired. I'm so honored, and thank you for the beautiful stories. Keep up the great work. And I'm excited to hear more about other people's stories. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you so much for just sharing that with us. And if there's anyone else who's like to read more stories from the blog, I think Katie just has written down the site where everybody can just go and just visit. Just to close it off before we hand it off to Kendon for the questions, I'd just like to add on that I think it's not every day we look through to our past for applause, but we look to our past from our past to just have to look at the challenges we faced. And I think that narrative should change, because most of the time, especially during COVID, we have survived so much. We've been resilient. There's been pain, there's been a lot of things that a lot of people experience, but I think we should really start looking at our past with applause, as people who've been resilient, as a continent who was resilient to COVID, as a continent that's surviving COVID. Well, during my fellowship at Wisconsin, I remember I was in a room and a very good friend of mine, Dr. Alma, we're talking about, I remember, colonialism and slavery, and it was a very heated conversation. And everybody was like, yeah, we're slaves. And she was like, she stood up and said it was very important to see and to monitor and to listen to yourself when you speak about yourselves. We're not slaved, we're enslaved. And I think that's the narrative where we're trying to do with Whose Stories Will We Hear. We're trying to come in and have women like Gail and Lily to come in and inspire us by telling us their narrative, in a way that it empowers the storyteller and does not take away from it. I think on our blog we say we do not only tell the African stories, we honor the voices in the stories. And I think at the core of it, at the core of Africans telling their own stories, is just honoring the people telling their stories. And I think Lily and Gail honored us with the stories today. And I think everybody's going to leave here with a sense of appreciation, with a deep sense of just understanding that there's a broader spectrum to the challenges that Africans face. And despite that, they are resilient every time. These are people who, despite what this fate, despite slavery, besides colonialism, besides Ebola, despite COVID, these are people who are resilient, who are innovative, who come up on top. And when Lily said she has found a way to just people homeschooling her kids, I mean, this is like where from the communities we come from, it's really one of the most difficult things to do. And for her to even do it is very inspiring. It's just us not controlling. From us controlling our stories, we get to control what we consume in terms of our education, and look at education systems and look at how our policies affect everything. By telling our own stories, we get to look at solutions that look at solutions that address our problems our own way. For the longest time, development in the continent has always been looked through like Western gaze, and to be at the point where COVID gives us the opportunity to say, these are African problems. How do we solve them as Africans in an African way? And how do we solve them? By collaborating with international communities that have the means, that can have the technologies to help us further, because collaboration at the end of the day is imperative, but also being authentic to who we are as people and understanding the dynamics of that, of the fact that as a continent, our problems are dynamic. It's quite imperative. So I'm truly grateful and honored to have had this opportunity to listen to these amazing stories and to have met everybody in this platform. So I'm going to hand it over to questions. If anyone has questions, whether to me, Lily, or Gail, or even Kathy. Yeah, I think we're good for questions.
I don't know if Kalkidan is here, so I think I will steer the questions until she pops back on. And please fill the chat with thoughts. This is, it doesn't have to be a specific question. It can be general. I guess I just want to reflect back what I'm hearing as people are thinking. This is just a great example of people who've come together around, friendship and connection. I think it's refreshing and probably corrective that we're not coming together around evidence-based citations. We all know how to do that, but there's real time and relationship built here. And then voice, the narratives and counter narratives and just the iterative truth telling that happens is so important. I love what you just spoke about in terms of monitoring our own thinking, and that there's a whole conversation about that's decolonizing your mind, and it's written with African wisdom for African audiences, but I personally have learned a lot from that because we all need to decolonize our minds. So connection and voice, and then like the things that you're talking about, I was going to use the word anti-stigma, but I don't even want to mention stigma because it reminds us that stigma was there. And it just seems like it's about dignity and love, and like in so many ways. I am reminded of a poem, and I can't remember the reference, maybe somebody will, but it talks about, the brokenness and the cracks in something, or what society thinks are broken and cracks. That's where the light comes in. And you're all, no one should suffer unjustly, but the life course gives us little sufferings here and there. We don't have to look for it. And those are just such growth opportunities and cracks where the light can come in. And I think what you're doing with your group and your storytelling, someone said, and joy. Yeah, I mean, we can hear joy. We're like, all these people have had such challenges and they're happy. I'm going to wash my dishes differently now, and so I'm just so grateful for the conversation. And I think we'll go to comments now, but what I was noting here is that there's a couple of ways we can post this whole conversation, but another way to make it more impactful for you might be to take the links that Kathy's been so diligent about posting and finding little short clips from the video and then posting those so that people can kind of get the whole picture, and then the individuals can repost as well as collectively, because I think there's a lot of stories being told here, and telling them as a collage is what you are, but sometimes you need to kind of break off and tell the story of one little group or the other. So I'll talk with the team about what's possible, and I'd like to hear feedback if you don't like that idea, but I think we could do just some nice little snips that will promote this event that will make people then go look for you. So with that, I would love to hear some comments and thoughts, maybe, and it just can be a comment. It doesn't have to be a question, and it can be questioning or it can be affirming. What did you take away from the conversation?
Can I say something even though it's okay?
Please do.
All right. For me, when I was listening to, because now also I got to listen to someone else's story, and having to listen to Mrs. Lily's story, I what I took from it is that, even though the pandemic has affected us in so many ways, it teaches us that whenever we come across a challenge in our life, she spoke about how her challenge of having to raise a child who had a condition, and that on its own was a challenge she had to face. And instead of allowing it to make her feel she won't be able to handle it, she now took that and used it to help other people. So sometimes, whatever we go through in our lives, or whatever, anything that we encounter, it I think that is where you get to find your purpose. Today she is now leading a group of women, and she has created a safe space, a safe haven for somebody to say, um, I don't know how to handle this situation, but there is a group of women that I can go to, who can lead, who has already been there. They've raised their children even in that condition, and they were able to handle it very well. So I'm going to do the same. And it can even go to an extent of, even if your child doesn't have a condition, but you are a new mother, you don't even know where to start. There's a group, a safe place whereby you can be able to go there and say, how do I do this? How do I take care of my child? Where do I start? When the child cries, what do I do? And that way on its own, for me, I feel like it's an inspiration. And I've taken that to say, sometimes your challenges can actually be a very inspiring thing, at some point, when you look at it in a different perspective and approach it in a different perspective, and be able to say, okay, what can I do to be able to make this an impactful experience, not only for me, but for the people around me. Thank you.
This conversation is reminding me of another of our 4W groups where they're talking about well-being. And there was something very wise that one of our partners from Kenya shared there. And she said, a lot of times when we talk about well-being, we talk about, as a deficit, like you need more resource. You're unwell because you don't have you're challenged or whatever, you're not as well as you could be because you don't have the resources to meet the challenges that you want. And that's one way of being sort of out of balance. So I think of it as this, like my need is here. Can you see my arms? And my resources are here. Another way that you can be out of balance is if you have resources and talents that aren't being used and that aren't recognized, because that's another affront to your dignity that can, in a different way, be just as hard. And I think that's another thing to think about is, these challenges make us realize, oh my gosh, I'm so much, I know you need to be humble or something, but you probably all, if you're honest with yourself, you're probably thinking, I'm amazing. Look what I did. Like, I'm amazing. And giving yourself permission to say, I am so much stronger and more amazing than I even realized. I think you should have a secret party and say that to each other. And, maybe we should give you permission. But the idea of that you need to be using all your talents in this life to be fulfilled is the other side of that, balance question. Any other? Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'd like to add in. So I've been reading the stories, right? And I've been editing the stories, and a whole lot of time when me and Katie get a story, it's one thing to read a story, but it's another thing to hear someone in person just explain the story or just share with us the story, which is quite amazing. I think I got to, when you've been referencing other groups, I'm just referencing like more of a connection, more than just this being an academic platform. Because I think, like you said, we can all just come here and just talk about academics and facts and I think one thing that we tried to shy away from that was that it's like, this is a time where when humanity faces one problem, when everybody in the world goes to bed and has one particular problem at this time is COVID-19. How do we as the world connect with each other? And I think we've just come to realize, me and Katie personally, I know Katie can attest to this, that more than anything, as much as COVID has been so difficult, we got to see humanity rise up. We got to see, I think it was you, Lori, I met Lori, I think in Wisconsin, and I got to sit down and she was talking about Ubuntu, right? And we got to see a whole lot of that during COVID, right? There's been challenges, there's been people who are corrupt and eating funds. We've had like our FLE problems, but there's also been a sense of people rising up. People like Lily, people like Gail coming up and saying, at the core of it, we're going to rise up because there's a hateful call. And for one to give themselves to people like that is truly amazing. And it's truly phenomenal. And it's those aspects that I think Ubuntu allows you to shine and to also help and right. It's a broad spectrum celebrated all over the continent. But I think at the core of it, I think it's that for us. COVID has given us the opportunity to look at how we talk about ourselves, how we tell our own stories. And it's not every day we had to reflect on that, and even to reflect on the injustices. You know, I think when you reflect on an injustice, when you're part of it and you're there on the street and you are marching and for those who are active, activists, but for you to do it from your comfort of your home and look at the cause that you're doing, it's truly like reflective, and it allows us to grow as people. And I think that's what this what the 4W group does to us. It like allows you to have a holistic view of what your life should entail. And sometimes in life, for a whole lot of time, we didn't get that chance to look at your life holistically. Because for the very first time in our life, some of us had to be like, yo, you have to sit with yourself. You have to be at your own house. You have to eat the food that you make. So now you have to look at your life in the broad spectrum of things and wonder, is this the life I want? Is this the life that in terms of, kindness, in terms of friendship, is this where I want to be as a person? And I think COVID has allowed that, despite the challenges, and has allowed us to be innovative in how we think, in how we treat people, and in how we just allow to live our lives. So I think for me, that has been the biggest lesson from this. Besides COVID having its challenges, our humanity has come up, but I'm a better individual. I got time to reflect, and I got time to reflect not just on the present, but on my journey, So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
There are two brief thoughts that I'd like to share. I've been listening to everyone. One is that, it relates in part to Lori, what you were saying about decolonizing the way we think and feel and behave. And I had a conversation here in Dakar with a woman from Cameroon, and I think about the connections, and our introduction was not based on the fact that we were women or we were mothers, but that became the connection, was being women and being mothers, in this world with two different experiences, but similar interests. And she proposed to me that maybe and she didn't use the word decolonizing, but it's how I heard it, to think less about doing and more about being. And it's something that I've thought of almost constantly since, because I think the way that the colonization has been internalized in me is that I think about doing. I think about living with my purpose by doing. And instead, when I'm being, this project is about being. It's about friendship and connection, and then allowing others. So then it leads to the second thought, allowing others to be their full self, to share their full self. Gail said, I'm looking for the quote, I think something to the effect of, no one can tell your story as well as you can. And I shared my lens of seeing this project as a vehicle to change narratives, to share information, with people who live in the United States, because I have frequently struggled to tell the story of others. And of course I have, because you can't tell someone's story the way that they can. And this is a way for me to answer the questions when I say, no, Africa and Africans are something very different than what you've seen or learned or been exposed to, and to be able to share these stories rather than me telling the stories is something that's really a gift to me.
Thank you, Kathy. I think, you know, telling a story with good heart and as best you can and open to revision and creating a space for other voices, it's a really important role you played. So I would see it as an and rather than an or, because I think even when you're telling someone's story imperfectly, you're learning to be a listener and people feel seen, and it's a step toward, you know, I had a graduate student, we were trying to do a vision statement. We've all done that. I won't get into it, but we were talking about this problem of speaking for people. And, you know, we never want to do that. And she said, well, what she came up with the formulation was very beautiful, was we want to listen to, stand with, and only when necessary, stand for the people we're working for. And I thought that was a very interesting formulation, because it's, you know, not, leaving space for voice. And I think to all of you, I'm going to turn it over to the speakers to have a last word if they want. But, you know, another thought to share as I hear you telling the stories is, it sounds like everybody has a time when, you know, you knew who you were in your story, but you didn't feel seen or others didn't know. It's kind of like your secret between you and, you know, whatever you believe, right? And so then getting that out so that you're seen by others is it's an important thing to do for each other, you know. So you're doing it and modeling it, and we really, really appreciate it. Last words? Always, never miss a chance to have the last word, by the way.
Okay. Kathy, should I think on behalf of Whose Stories Will We Hear, it's been an honor and a privilege. I think anyone who I think I met during my Mandela Washington Fellowship, or anyone who has met me in person, understands how at the core of everything that I do, you know, lies people. I love people, and that has inspired me fully. You know, I love people, and I love seeing people go further. And I also, one of the things that I truly believe in is helping people or just creating platforms. I was sitting at a cafe this other one time, and someone, because this was very like when someone asked me, someone said thank you, and like I said thank you to someone's like, what are you thanking me for? And it's like, and they asked me what was I thanking them for. It's like just for being themselves. And I think that has just been my journey. I've been helped by so many people. I've been given opportunities by so many people. I've been shown light. I've got the opportunity to listen to people share their stories with me for so many years, and to do it on this continental platform. So Whose Stories Will We Hear? It's just like an honor and a privilege for me. And I think it's also the same for Kathy, who's very passionate about development and just like changing the narratives of how people view storytelling as a whole. So we'd like to thank you guys for having us. We'd like to say if there's anyone else would like, who'd contribute positively and who'd like to share their story with us, they must just come forward. If there's any other opportunities that might align with Whose Stories Will We Hear that you can think of, please drop us an email. But most importantly, do go read the stories, do visit the stories. We're gonna have books coming up in the future, and we're gonna contribute them to various villages and across South Africa and the rest of the continent, so that other people can read the story, so that other people can see that there's people strive, people are resilient beyond where they come from and beyond who they are, or they do not necessarily are not defined by anything else besides themselves. So thank you so much for having us. It's truly been an honor to be part of this platform.